So welcome back. And in this part, we're going to backtrack a little bit. We just went through mixed methods terminology, mixed methods methodology, but we're going to step back because this course unit, it's a bit longer due to the Thanksgiving break. So this is due December 3rd, but this exercise or this portion of the presentation will really help you as you work through discussion 5. So we're going to go back a little bit, and this is like a prep for discussion 5. So keep that in your mind. We're going to run through it. So how do we do qualitative analysis? It's something that when we think about it, it sounds really, I don't know, maybe easy, maybe difficult. I'm not quite sure. But, we don't have a sense of what it's like to really do it directly or experience it. So since we don't have IRB approval and we can't collect interview data or qualitative data from people, we're going to use a mock interview. So this is an interview that was done, and we're going to take this interview and pretend that, which is loaded in your discussion 5 on Blackboard. So please note, it's all there. You're going to listen and kind of read through this interview. And as the people are talking, you're going to try to get some themes, right? So individual codes are smaller units. So people are talking about mental health or about stress, but then how are they relating it? Maybe that, mental health has changed because of why, right? More deep. So themes are a little bit more deeper. You could think about why would anybody collect this information? What would be the research question that they are approaching? And then who are the key informants and who would you be interviewing? So it's just a practice, a way to apply analyzing qualitative data. So you'll begin, you're going to look at this really, 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 really interesting excerpt from this show that's titled Identifying and Treating Mental Illness. So the content that you hear in this recording is very similar to what you would hear if you were listening to a tape of a qualitative researcher's interview. And then think about what codes emerged, right? What small codes emerged? And then what would you name them? How would you focus on them? And I'll give you an example. In that study that I worked on, we were listening and a provider said, we had so much trouble with CDC rules. They were always changing, and the rules at my agencies were different depending on the ones I worked at. And then how would we make that a code? We decided to make that a code about changing and conflicting guidelines. So you're summing up what's a deeper theme or a deeper content of what the individuals are saying. So how do you do it? As you're listening to the interview, you just note down any kind of ideas that you hear, right? Or any themes that pop up. And you think about, well, what would be the research question that this person would be addressing in their discussion? And then who would you want to speak to? So who would you want to speak to learn more information about your project? And I want you now to pause and listen to the excerpt from this show, and then we'll go forward with coding. So if you can pause and listen to the excerpt, that would be great. Once you're done, we'll resume. And I want you to practice mock coding. Like, what kind of themes, what kind of ideas, what kind of concepts are generated from that interview? And we'll walk you through a bit. So what are some codes you could have identified that maybe in terms of mental illness that there was discussion of vulnerability, disorganization, being delusional, suicidal, bizarre behavior, that there must be harm for self or others, that the laws were bad, that there was a high commitment threshold, that commitment for care was just too brief, and that parents might lie to get their children the help that they need, and there might be some detrimental effects to the parent-child relationship, and that, no surprise to any of us, that insurance companies might not cover the stay that's necessary. And that even if they did, there might not be availability in terms of beds to treat people who might need urgent treatment or emergent treatment for mental illness. So here's some examples of some codes that come up. And then what's the bigger idea or theme, right? The themes from what you learned in those codes might be that there's no help for mentally ill but you're punished. So we're punishing people for mental health issues, but we're not treating them, right? And that we're using criminal justice over mental health. So criminal justice over preventative or appropriate health treatment. And that you might look at, like, there's structural problems. It's a larger theme from what you're hearing, that there are people who wish to receive treatment, but there's no treatment available. And a disturbing theme you might find is that there's a lack of attention of authorities, that even when someone's dangerous, they don't receive help, right? So there's a dismissing of level of danger or level of self-harm. So what are some questions, right, that were sparked? Like, you might want to think about, what are the stresses on families of mentally ill individuals and and their needs? How do law enforcement cope with the fact that they are de facto handling people with mental illness? What are the social and economic forces that can explain these health inequities, in terms of mental health treatment and access to treatment? And then, what explains lack of action when you, as let's say, a mental health professional, try to get a client some treatment, but no one listens, right? And then what are some solutions proposed by people who actually work with the population and understand the need authentically? Who would you interview? You might want to interview individuals with mental health issues, families, law enforcement, mental health professionals, advocates, you name it. Who are the people who, if you interview, could give you rich data that you could really apply? And then, after you're writing this in discussion, step back and look at other people and their discussion and see, like, what kind of codes or themes they're getting. Because, as you know, we're always all in the research that we do. So even in quantitative or qualitative, you are in that research. So your lens might be therapeutic. It might be an advocacy lens. It might be a resource provider lens. What are the patterns you're seeing compared to other classmates? And now that we've run through it all, go back and listen to the excerpt from that show, take some time, think of the codes, think of the themes, think of what would be possible research questions that you might derive or you want to test from what you've just learned, and then who would be really key informants or experts in that topic that would help you gain more information. So I know we have some time, and this will be due December 3rd, but it gives you time to listen and really analyze these data. So I'm going to stop here, and if you have questions, always feel free to reach out.